Leo's not queer and slender. Give me some man cave news. See you night, a hokum boom makes me wanna puke. If you're a man, don't prance around like Daisy Duke. Get out of my state with your drag show, or toss your purse aside and put up your duke.
So, so things are developing so rapidly. It is literally, it's making my head spin. I was going to do more follow up regarding the assassination, which the conspiracy is becoming a proven fact. Like I had this sense of desperation when it first happened. Excuse me. It's very difficult. My videos are going to be less sophisticated as we go, because with literally no use of my right hand or arm, it's getting to where I can't even hardly even thumb text without getting a bunch of shoulder pain and stuff like that. So, but there's too many thoughts that I feel like I have to share, and this isn't a video I'm going to be probably promoting too heavily as far as like social media or whatever. But I feel like I have to chronicle things as they go, because things are going at a breakneck breakneck speed. See, I can't even speak correctly. Unlike President Trump, who was incredible in the delivery of his speech at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, the man stood there for, I didn't catch how long he went, but compare and contrast Donald Trump standing up there at his age flawlessly, with a little bit of aid from the teleprompter, but I mean, he could have had no teleprompter. I mean, that was the most successful convention speech I've ever seen. That was the most flawlessly executed convention I've ever seen. Forget about the criticisms. And like I said, this is when you observe how people behave. When you are winning and people make negative contributions, then you know to always look at them with a certain element of distrust. It doesn't mean you discount them forever, but it does mean that you learn to not trust certain people. When it comes to content creators, talking heads, influencers, whatever you want to label people, I mean, I kind of have my categories of people. And I like to recommend, and I'm going to use this opportunity to recommend some of the better people. The Benny Show is fantastic. If you want, it's entertaining, it's up to date, and big shout out to the Benny Show. He's always on top of a lot of the latest stuff, and it's never boring. And he just pointed something out that I just saw. Benny, all of a sudden I can't remember his last name because it came up as the Benny Show. I have to try to use a mouse with my left hand, which really, really sucks. Oh my gosh, I've been screen recording all this time. That sucks. Okay. Let's see. There's got to be a way to pause this camera on the keyboard with a keyboard shortcut. So anyway, Benny Johnson, totally understandable I would forget a name like Johnson. That's one of those tricky names, really unusual. There is so much stuff coming out now that I'm almost starting to find myself becoming optimistic, which is scary because I am a very cynical person. When it comes to the American public, I have never been impressed with the intelligence of the American people. It almost feels like people are starting to come around. And what's really surprising me is how much information is starting to come out, which lends itself to Trump being very much like the 5D chess player. And I've been studying and listening to a lot of more obscure, podcasters and people that have speculated over the years about a big long-term strategy that Trump has been actually sort of in control of this whole thing since the beginning, and I wanted to believe it. I'm to the point now to where I'm like, I'm starting to actually believe it. And my voice keeps going out on me, so I keep having to pause. This is really getting really frustrating, so I'm going to have to get something to drink here. Okay, so it's becoming very difficult to even make this video. This will be probably the least watched video I make. Like I said, things are happening so quickly that it's amazing. As far as the conspiracy with the assassination, virtually there is a flood of information that I guess the cabal can't control because it's coming out everywhere. I at first I was pointing out, how come, where's all the other videos? Where's all the other stuff? Well, I was being too cynical because it's coming out. It's such a flood that I went from being, shortly after the assassination attempt, I laid out my theory, and I believe my theory is 100% correct. And that is that this was a planned assassination that was performed by the federal government, by the Biden administration. And I could go into a much longer defense of this that comes from a lifetime of observation, and the way that I conclude things is I look at everything from the point of view of, if I were the enemy, if I had the resources that I believe that the enemy has, and I wanted to achieve a certain end, what would I do? Well, I would do exactly what the administration did. Biden is just a name. It's just a sticker or a label on the organization. If you're a Christian and you know that this entire thing boils down to good versus evil, it boils down to everything that we're seeing is so distinctly laid out in prophecy with accuracy that's just unbelievable. I mean, it's unreal. And you look at this entire thing as this chess game between, the Almighty versus an inferior opponent who's driven by rage and hate. And you look at everything through that prism, it's so easy to spot patterns, and things become very predictable. The nice thing is that I'm not omniscient. I'm not God, and I am surprised that how many Americans are waking up. I never in my life, I was very, I had kind of a defeatist attitude. I felt like, they own education, they own the media, they own, and Scripture describes Satan as the God of this world. When the devil is trying to tempt Jesus, the devil actually says that I have the authority to offer you these things. He shows him the kingdoms of the world. So that's where I get into sometimes arguments with people over the sovereignty of God, and it's like, yes, God is ultimately sovereign, but Adam sacrificed that sovereignty, so to speak, and that's where I believe free will comes in, because otherwise, man has sort of handed the world over to Satan, and that's where everything pretty much went south. And when you look at how the world is, and you consider that Scripture acknowledges Satan as the god of this world, and you look at the world around us, it's easy for me to get really cynical. And ultimately, as a Christian, where we all agree is that in the end, God wins, of course. But I had a hard time translating that into any hope that we could win, or we could have prosperity and good things in life, because I always felt like Americans, and it's not American specific, it's any group of people, it's not an ethnicity or anything like that, that are given everything in abundance that this country's given. It's just like, to me, it's like the experiment that proves that mankind can't handle abundance, and he can't handle freedom, and he can't, without God as the component that grounds him. And we call America the post-Christian era, which truly it is, at least in a cultural sense. There is a difference between truly a born-again Christian and cultural Christians. Cultural Christianity is still superior. If a society operates like that, like it used to in this country, like it, say, back in like the 40s and 50s, there were just certain things that were assumed. I mean, nobody would ever even consider, surgically altering a child's healthy body. I mean, that's satanic, and it's obviously is. And we're living in a society where I actually have to argue with people about that. I have to actually overcome the label of being a hater or a Nazi, because I'm wanting to stand in the way of a society that wants to mutilate our children, let alone murder them in the womb, and so on. So my cynicism was fairly deep rooted, at least in the temporal, in the sense of the world that we're looking at right now. And I'm pleasantly surprised that, because I've never been somebody that believes in karma, and I don't mean that from a spiritual sense. Of course, I don't believe in karma per se, but I've seen so many people get away with so much. Excuse me. Jeez, the phlegm gods are really after me. And I know it sounds like I'm meandering off down other rabbit holes, but I'm really not, because like I said, with this assassination thing, I would have thought, there's no way they're going to cover this up. Nothing's going to ever come of it. There's never going to be justice. We've been hearing this for years, justice, and it just seemed like they could get away with virtually anything, because they have, Something has shifted. I mean, something has seriously shifted in the world, because there is the cat's out of the bag, and there's no putting this cat back in the bag. In other words, if you monitor YouTube and you look at some of the good content that's out there, and some of the people that are bringing it as fast as they can, and if you're like me, you have the capacity, and you smartly, for many years, have downloaded offline as much information as you can, because you always knew, with the censorship point of view, controlling the information is where the evil side, that's their big motivation. You control information, that's the key, right? There's so many things that you can no longer find. There's so many things, and you need to learn to rely more on this than Google. That's why I don't get into the game anymore. If somebody says, well, prove it, show me your sources, where's the link? It's like, the link's here. I don't have to prove it to anybody. You have to learn in life to get to a point where the people who you can trust, and not be, as they say, gaslighted. I hate popular terminology, but that's kind of what it is, trying to make you think you're crazy because you know what you saw, and then you can't find it anywhere to confirm it on the internet. And with the fast food society that we live in, Like I said, I was pretty hopeless that like nothing's ever going to take. Americans have the attention span of a gnat. I've said that several times, and that may still well be true. But I am always going to hold out hope and try to have hope, and I'm having some hope right now that the good guys are winning. Um, there is no reeling back all the interviews and all the footage from all the cell phones that have literally proven at this point that there are multiple shooters. It just came out today when I was talking about Benny Johnson that, as it turns out, those so-called Secret Service agents, the gaggle of dingbats, those girls that are stumbling around like the Three Stooges in the footage. As it turns out, they actually were not Secret Service. Like, officially, they were not Secret Service. It has come out from a whistleblower that these were Department of Homeland Security extras. They were people from, like, other investigative departments. In other words, they were not trained Secret Service agents, which should go without saying. You saw the way they responded. You had some short, chubby gal who was bumping around, and one of them was hiding behind Trump, and they couldn't holster their weapons. As it turns out, they weren't Secret Service. That means that literally what was allocated to Trump's Secret Service team was deliberately administrative decisions were made to give them a very light detail. And I think there's even wording in there somewhere, and this is all going to come out, that this was considered a low-risk event or something. And it's like, wow, really? This is good news. Like, I'm happy today. I'm just like, wow, there's no putting this back. I mean, this is like, this citizen journalism thing, and Twitter, and man, I don't care what anybody says about Elon Musk, man. I love the guy, man. I mean, he's a hero. I mean, I learned the thing about X. I used to never go on Twitter. I didn't care about it. And the only reason I ever got on Twitter, ever even got an account, which I never went to for a long time, was simply because Elon bought it out, and people were saying, well, we're going to put it out of business, and there's going to be a mass exodus, right? So I only got an account. Then I realized the magic of it, and I realized why they're trying to get rid of X and why the government's tried to get rid of it. Because the way it works is you follow people. Certain people follow you. And it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds. And then you have news sharing that's a lateral. It's a lateral thing, back and forth, back and forth. Somebody gets a cell phone video of an interview with somebody, and bam, it's out there, and then you share it and repost, and it goes all over Twitter. Twitter has been our saving grace. In fact, I've gotten more information through Twitter than I probably have anywhere else. And there are people that would be cynical. It's like, where do you get your information? Do you get it from Twitter? And it's like, yeah, a lot of it. Twitter is a mechanism. Not good or bad. It is a mechanism. It's communication. People communicating with each other. That's why the term citizen journalist now carries more legitimate weight than journalism or journalist or media, mainstream media. People are learning not even to trust conservative media, and you shouldn't. You should never trust implicitly anybody. You should go through life and through your empirical observations, you should start calculating and keeping track of who has turned out to be reliable throughout your life with your own personal relationships and people who are, if you want to call it that, media, so to speak. And be leery of all of them, because like Newsmax, there's a lot of great stuff on Newsmax. There are some good shows. There's some good people there. Newsmax can't be trusted, though, because I noticed things that I never forget. And I remember reading Newsmax had an article back at some point, and it literally stated as fact about Donald Trump making disparaging remarks about the election results. And it literally, Newsmax said as fact that these are, absolutely, unfounded was the word they used, unfounded allegations. They were playing that narrative. So within the conservative patriot media, there are all kinds of people who are compromised. They're bought out. They'll go up to the line, and they're only allowed to go so far. So anybody who's still allowed to be on Fox News, you can still get information from them. There's a lot of great stuff from Jesse Waters. But if they're being allowed to stay on Fox News, there's a reason. That means that, in other words, when conservatism and the people that are on God's team, right, start to have victories, that's when you start to see the people who are restrained start to peel off and peel away. Like Mark Levin. I used to think he was brilliant, and he probably is brilliant intellectually. But when it got too close to things getting real, like people like Matt Getz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and people like that literally did what the people want. They're acting like Trump. They're like saying, no, we're not going to do business as usual. When it comes to the Speaker of the House, Matt Getz is like saying no, like Matthew McCartney, what was his name? Speaker of the House was reneging on his promises, and they were making demands. It's like, no, you can't be the speaker because of this. And Mark Levin just excoriated him, and they started. He was insulting Matt Getz and all this, and I realized that they either have something on him, or somebody is funding him, or he's beholden to some other power. Okay, so you mark him off the list. You could still listen to some of his content because it'll still be some good content, but he's only allowed to do so much. Glenn Beck is another one. I used to think he was great. The thing is the deep state knows that the American public has a short memory. So there's a lot of people now that think, oh man, Glenn Beck and his organization is just great, and they do still function in a positive way to put a lot of good positive information out there that is decent. However, Glenn Beck is a mealy-mouthed little puke. He's a sellout if there ever was one. He was a darling of the mainstream media there briefly, and people don't remember, just a few years ago, and he was literally comparing Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. He's on there talking about him as Adolf Hitler. And he's trying to pretend like that never happened. And other people will point out that Tucker Carlson had some big criticisms against Trump over the election stuff back in the day. The difference is Tucker Carlson will come out and come out and said, man, I was wrong. I believed that crap, and I was slinging that crap. There's a difference there. So you have to mark people off the list, okay? Glenn Beck, Mark Levin, Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity was pushing for relaxing, abortion. Sean Hannity's, there's no danger of him ever being kicked off of Fox News, okay? There's a reason for that. You can't trust them. You can't trust the people that are still on Fox for the most part. Some of them, I think, are decent, and they're hanging in there to do as much damage as they can while they're there. But you have to have different levels of trust. And I know I'm kind of meandering here, but it all kind of has a central point. What I'm getting at is the floodgates have opened, and the deep state is in deep, and they can't control the flood of information that's coming from too many different areas. And Trump, in my opinion, kind of has orchestrated all this. He's kind of he's a master. He would have been a great military commander. There's no question about it. He knows how to manipulate the people around him. He wrote a book. that's still considered the Bible of Wall Street, The Art of the Deal. It was written so long ago. That is still one of the most highly revered books, The Art of the Deal. And you think about that, that's the genius right there. That's the real Donald Trump. The more I study this man and his background, the more amazed I am at him. He's the only politician who's ever thrown me a curveball. He's the only one. I used to be able to predict everything every politician was going to do. I knew what the backlash was going to be. I knew exactly when they made a mistake. It was like I was the amazing Kreskin. And then Trump comes along and just turns all of it upside down. So I don't get too bent out of shape when Trump, if he picked J.D. Vance and maybe J.D. Vance, was the anti-Trump guy 2 years ago. I'm not worried about it. The reason why is I'm looking for leadership. Other people are looking to nitpick everything Trump does as if they're the ones who orchestrated all this. If Trump better talk to them or he's going to make a big mistake. Trump has had this under control all along. He seems to have orchestrated this whole show. So when he picks somebody and it's not my first pick, I didn't have a first pick deliberately because I wanted the benefit of Trump's wisdom on this. I'm like, he's not God. I'm not saying he is God. I'm saying, listen, you've done so well without my help and my wisdom that, I'm kind of just sitting back and watching and enjoying the show. And I do truly believe that. He definitely loves this country. I can't imagine anybody who could just go off in the sunset and enjoy his grandkids and the best lifestyle in the world and to put himself up to this kind of punishment. There's no explanation for that. There's no explanation for that. And, it seems like he's winning. It seems like he has orchestrated this thing to where we've gotten to a point of critical mass, the point of no return, to where it's like a pincer movement in the military. It's like he's got them surrounded, and I mean surrounded in every way. And now, can you imagine being a Democrat now after that convention, after that speech? And interestingly, Biden now, I think the out that they're going to look, this is my prediction. This is just for fun, okay? And just see if it proves out. To save face, they know that Biden is digging at his heels, and there's a pride thing here. If he steps down because of what looks like dementia, that's going to be really humiliating. That's going to be, the whole thing is a humiliation to begin with. And all of a sudden I hear, if you notice, Biden tests positive for, of all things, COVID, right? There's not going to be any shame if Joe Biden says, I'm going to have to step down. I've got some health concerns, complications with COVID, and they'll have, COPD. They'll have some typical octogenarian style health issue that people would normally have that's going to make it where, Biden's sharp as a tack, and boy, up here he's got it, and he's done a great job, but his physical health is just starting to fail him, and it'll even make him look kind of like even more of a hero. He just drug himself to the finish line, and that way it avoids the embarrassment of him stepping down because he's got dementia. But it's too late. Everybody knows anyway. And getting back to Benny Johnson, he pointed out that there's a video that it belongs to Kamala Camel-Toe Harris, whatever, and her team has gone in and edited it. And if you go to his, I should probably put the link in below, hopefully, so you can click on it. On her official account, I don't know what it was, TikTok or something like that, but it's her video where the weirdo dude that looks like Jesus in a dress shows up at the White House, and he comes in and he's like, Madam Vice President or whatever, and there's like a subtitle, They just recently have gone in and edited it to say Madam President. They did that. Somebody made a conscious decision to do that. So the jig is up. They're getting ready to shift Biden out and Harris to being the president. It's legally, it's the only way they can really do this, because there's all this money donated to Biden Harris. They can't put Gavin Newsom in there or somebody like that. Legally, they can't. All that money that's been donated, they can't just change horses in the middle of the race and then, hey, I get all that money. It does not work that way. Even as illegal as they are, there's just not even a technical way to get away with it. This isn't something that you would even have power of an executive order over. This is not, you can't mess with it. So Harris has to stay in the mix, because the funding and for all of this is for the Biden-Harris campaign. How they're going to work it, I don't know. There's been talk of bringing Hillary Clinton in, which I love the fact that they keep going to the same strategies that are destroying them. They don't know what else to do, and they're not in agreement. There is so much infighting right now on the Democrat side. It is literally a dream come true. This is the kind of stuff I fantasized about when I was 10 years old, man. Well, everybody else was fantasizing about being a football hero, and I was just, dreaming of revenge. Like, I want the truth to come out. I want to see these guys turn on themselves. And they're imploding. It's like, it's unbelievable. So, I believe they know right now that it is beyond point critical, beyond it. Their assassination attempt failed. They don't have the resources and everything to try to put another one together, because they are running scared to try to cover this one up. They have to try to figure out somebody to run. They got to get rid of Biden. Think about you talk about multitasking. And this is when these cohesive units fall apart, because it's the same thing. This is organized crime. If you look at it through the prism of organized crime, this is how it works. People rule with fear and muscle, and there is no loyalty. That's a total myth as far as the mafia goes. There's no loyalty. It's fear. And when things fly apart, what happens? That's when you have Henry Hill and you have all these people cutting deals with the feds, and they all turn on each other and they murder each other, show up at each other's funerals, even though they're the ones that murdered the person whose funeral they're attending, right? That's what you're watching take place. And I am half scared to even put all this out there, because I almost was prideful about my cynicism, but I don't know. Things are shaping up fairly nicely. And again, pay close attention to the people who are going to now take a good thing and try to splinter or divide or be critical. Never trust, especially snake in the grass type people like Stu Peterson, who spends a lot of energy attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene and stuff like that. It's like the people that are, nothing's good enough for them, and then they have to destroy when you have a good thing going, right? They become purists all of a sudden. When you have people like right here in Idaho politics, you have, what's his name, Tyler Hurst or whatever. I mean, the Idaho Freedom Foundation, which does a lot of amazing good work, but when its principal, like big player, comes out and starts ripping on Trump and I'm not voting for Donald Trump, like the guy's telling everybody, after all this, I'm going to throw my vote away. Okay, they're in it for themselves. Don't trust them. Utilize them for what you can get out of them, but don't trust them. Utilize Mark Levin for the information you can get out of him, but always know that he's a snake. He's not somebody to be trusted, you know. But it comes back to useful idiots or useful snakes. You know, use them for what you can. Trump's going to do that. People are always like, well, Trump needs to get smarter about who he gets next to him. And then you look at the mafia saying, you know, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Nobody's really taken him by surprise. He probably never really did trust Mike Pence. He probably never really did trust a lot of these people that turned on him. He's been around long enough, and he's been in that rough and tumble, bare knuckle New York business world that I don't think anybody's ever taken him by surprise. I don't think any of this took him by surprise. And because I'm rambling and I'm all over the place, I'm going to end this with my analogy and what turned me around on Trump from being a person who feels like they had to advise the politician to the person who had to become grasshopper to start learning. And I started learning from Trump. And this is the classic analogy I would say is in the beginning. Trump saw the long game when he decided many years ago that he probably was going to have to enter into being running for president. I think this goes way back, actually. And you look at his interview with Oprah. What was it, back like in the 80s or 90s or something like that, and you realize that the dude is bad, man. What he did was, and Joe Frazier is my favorite boxer of all time, and I'm not a big fan of Muhammad Ali as far as his character, but as a tactician, he was brilliant. And basically, Trump basically is Muhammad Ali in his fight against George Foreman. I think that was the Rumble in the Jungle. Yeah. And yeah, it was. And George Foreman at that time, some would argue now, I think pound for pound had the most devastating punch, pound for pound, of any boxer. What a lot of people don't realize is George Foreman was favored to destroy Muhammad Ali. He was like everybody, the odds, all the odds, the Vegas odds, everything was 100% that George Foreman was just going to destroy Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali did what Trump did to the media, this big giant, the media that has so much power, so much punch, and so much control. Donald Trump was deliberately obnoxious from the beginning. Instead of trying to apologize or rationalize everything he did, when he would purposely say things that he knew would not play well in the media. And then when they were chasing that down and making a big deal, he would go and say something else really obnoxious. And then he would insult his opponents, even great guys. I mean, people that, you know, like Ted Cruz and stuff. And all these guys now, they know what was going on. He had to be the nastiest, most obnoxious person in the world and keep pissing them off, so that, like George Foreman was so mad that George Foreman just kept trying to punch and got so angry and was hitting at Ali so much, and Ali was doing the rope-a-dope. He just kept coming back, and he kept letting the blows glance off of him, and he kept just pissing George Foreman off. And what George Foreman did was he punched himself out. Punching somebody's self out in boxing means you expended so much energy that you weakened yourself to the point that then Muhammad Ali came back and was basically doing the shuffle and pow, 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 pow. That's what Trump did to the media. The media punched themselves out. The media had repeated so much negative stuff about Trump for so long that the American public became anesthetized to it. In other words, you stop hearing it. It's like racism. You don't even hear real racism anymore. Nobody really, it doesn't carry any weight, because when you call everything racism, it's like the boy who cried wolf. Nobody listens. And he knew this, and he brilliantly made the media punch themselves out. They just kept saying he's a racist, this and that over and over again. And that's what he wanted. He kept heaping it on himself. He would say things that he was hoping they would take it out of context and keep running with it, because he knew that the American people that had tuned out of politics because they were so cynical about it would start noticing this guy. And it's exactly what happened. The media has punched itself out. Did you ever think you'd live in a time when nobody even pays attention to CNN or takes them seriously at all? And then not even pay really attention to Fox anymore, or the people who do watch it, take everything with a grain of salt, because they know that they're compromised too. They punched themselves out. They exposed themselves. You know, it's like a judo type concept. Use their own power against them. Get them so worked up. Judo is all about using balance and turning one's opponent's own power against themselves to work against themselves. He is a master. Trump's a master. And I am feeling pretty good about how he's going to ride the rest of this out. But now he's riding the rest of it out with a grounding. He now fully understands providence, divine providence. He knows that with all of his brilliance, with every single thing that he accomplished, everything he accomplished, it was God's hand. That was the only thing. It would all be for naught. We would be in civil war right now, and Biden would have called martial law, and it would have been, that's all she wrote. And God said, yeah, we're in the end times, but God's given us another little break. He's given us a chance here. And it was the divine hand of God that literally just let that ear get hit. Okay? It wasn't, it was meant to be. And this is where I'm back on board with all the Calvinists. You know what I mean? As far as saying that God had everything planned out, it's like, well, you got a good case there. You know what I mean? Because God sees everything in 2D, like he sees everything happening at the same time, and he knew all this was happening. And now Trump is a different Trump. You see it in his eyes. And this time around it's going to be different. There's going to be justice. And the Bible does say that basically everything is going to be exposed. All evil is going to come to the light of day. And there is so much panic and fear from the cabal now, because they know what's coming. Just like the devil knows his time is short, the devil extended the what's the word I'm looking for, by proxy, vicariously, the devil and all these people know their time is short. They have committed so many crimes. And if you've been paying attention and you watch hearings like Forbes plays a lot on YouTube, and I highly recommend them, and you see people getting grilled in these testimonies in Congress that the media is not reporting. This stuff is on congressional record. It's legal. This is people under oath testifying that have been exposed. This is all prosecutable offenses. And I believe we're actually, in my lifetime, going to see some actual justice. I think it's plausible that Biden himself and people in the Biden administration very well could be facing actual criminal felony prison time, for real. The evidence is indisputable. It's like, it doesn't matter that the media is not reporting it. It's there. It's still there. They did not take over the Supreme Court. They came close. They tried. And that would have been another door closer. Trump getting a bullet in the head would have been another door closer. God let evil run wild to a point, and then he said, not so fast. So I guess my message for today would be, let your heart not be troubled. I believe God does care about what happens in this world. And I believe that there has been those of us that have literally been praying and praying and praying and crying out for justice. I believe God literally, He has heard our prayers, and and I'm seeing some, what I would have to say is literally like miracles, and certainly that assassination deflection was a miracle. And boy, I tell you, there was something different going on when Trump was up on that stage. Um, and my only advice would be, don't get caught up listening to too much noise. Start learning to hear what is worthy of hearing, and you won't expend a lot of stress, anxiety, and a lot of time listening to noise. Um, if you just kind of sit back, God will bring the right information to you. It's been amazing the things that I've come across without even trying anymore. Um, so that's my Friday message. And this is my video that's probably going to be the least watched and circulated, but I literally just wanted this for my own record, because the observations that I'm making lately, it's just been overwhelming. It's like you're seeing this whole big thing just come together, and it's I praise God for all of it, man. I really do. And I wouldn't get caught up in a lot of arguments with people. It's pointless. It really is. It's like people, will sit there and tell you we're producing more oil than we ever have, and they'll get out a bunch of you know, uh, pie charts and bar graphs and stuff, and try to make the numbers look like, Biden's producing more oil. It's a lie, because you just step back and take the simple route. It's okay, if Biden's friendly to oil, then why are the strategic reserves depleted to the lowest level they've ever been? If the economy's in great shape and all these Nobel laureates or whatever are saying all this stuff about the economy, then don't believe your own eyes and pocketbook when you go to the grocery store. You don't have to argue. You don't have to prove. You don't have to provide a link. You know how much it costs to fill your gas tank. You know the interest rates you're paying. You know how hard it is to buy a house now and everything. You know, I'd say relax and enjoy the show, but don't worry about arguing with people. Anybody at this point that is not waking up to what's really going on, there's no hope for them. I'm not going to say there's no hope for them, but there's no hope from the point of view of you convincing anybody, because intellectually they are either mentally retarded or willfully ignorant. In either case, it doesn't matter. It's pearls to swine. Don't waste your time. Prayer is the number one thing that's more effective than anything you can do in all of this, and being involved in politics at the local level. So the next videos I'm going to do is going to be on what we have to do in Idaho to save Idaho, because Idaho is currently under a great and grave threat. There is an insidious enemy deeply digging its heels in Idaho through the open primary initiative, which is also, and the main idea linked with it is ranked choice voting. It's a lie that we're going to expose, and by the time it's not going to get voted in. I guarantee you that. There's too many of us that are aware. But I'm going to start making some videos that I'm going to do everything I can to make go as viral as possible to expose the enemies within Idaho, because we are actually way closer to being California than anybody realizes. This is a purple state. It's not a red state. It is purple with blue velvet on the outside, about ready to burst. And if we do what we need to do prayerfully, we can keep Idaho from turning into a California, and it is closer than people think. And I'm going to provide very solid information and examples for this in coming videos, and those are the videos that I'm going to really work hard to try to get my channel up and a lot more exposure, because This is a very important to me. This is something I love my state. I'm an Idaho native, and I will not allow it. I will not allow these creeping, disgusting people to destroy the very reason everybody wants to move to Idaho now. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. And this video will be watched maybe by all of maybe one person, probably JB. Big shout out to JB out there, but that's okay because the quality of my audience is more important. And so, if we got some people that have some brains in their head that this is just some communication, it's well worth it as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. I know I'm going to. And I have never enjoyed watching people like Don Lemon and MSNBC. It's really fun to watch now. It's great. It's good comedy. It's almost like back when Saturday Night Live was funny. So God bless everybody and have a wonderful weekend.
I guess I'm an offender, 'cause I'm fat till this nail's not queer and slender. Give me some man cave news. Seeing Idaho go blue makes me wanna puke. If you're a man, don't prance around like Daisy Duke. Get out of my state with your drag show, or toss your purse aside and put up your dukes. Get the truth from the man cave news and chase away those penny waist blues. Get the truth from the man cave news and chase away those penny waist blues. Get the truth from the man cave news and chase away those penny waist blues. From the man cave news and chase away those penny waist blues. Get the truth from the man cave news and chase away those penny waist blues. Get the truth from the man cave news and chase away those penny waist blues. Get the truth from the man cave news and chase away those penny waist blues. Fight, fight, fight. Fight, 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 fight.